Hello and welcome. In this video, we will learn about static methods. Alright. A static method is a method that belongs to a class rather than any object from that class. Alright. Now I will take an example and teach you the concept of static method. Okay. So first I will define a class by the name employee, and inside this I will have a constructor. Alright, so I will say init, and then I will pass self name employee ID and let me say position. Okay, and inside I will say self dot name is equal to name, self dot employee ID is equal to employee ID, and self dot position is equal to position. All right, now I will create an instance method. Alright, we know about instance methods, and here I will define an instance method to get the information of an employee. Okay, so I will say self, and inside I will print the information of an employee using the F string. Alright, so this here is an instance method, meaning we need to use an object to access this. Okay, so let us create some objects. So I will say employee 1 is equal to employee, and in brackets I will pass Anita E001 and I will say manager. Alright, so here I have spelled it wrong, it is employee. Okay, and then I will create employee 2 and I will pass. Alright, so now let us call this instance method using an object. So I will say employee 1 dot get info, and I will run this program. And when I do that, I get the information of employee 1, right? So if I change this to 2 and if I run this, I get the information of employee 2, meaning we were able to access this method using the objects that belong to this class, right? So this is an instance method. Okay, now let me create a static method. Okay, to create a static method we need to use a decorator called as static method. Okay, and now below this I will define a function to check if a position is valid or not. Okay, so I will say is valid position, and to this function we will pass position. Okay, static methods don't have self as the first argument because we are not working with any objects created from this class. Okay, We are checking if a position is valid or not. And so we will pass in position as an argument. Okay. Now inside this, I will create a list of valid positions. And inside this list, I will say manager, engineer, sales person, and let us say janitor. Okay. So let us say that these four are the valid positions in this company. Okay. So here I will return position in valid positions. Okay. I am using the membership operator here to check if a position that we receive is in our list of valid positions, and then we are returning the position. So if a value that we send is in this, then true will be returned. If a value that we send is not in this list, then false will be returned. Okay. Now what we have done is we have created a static method. Now we are not relying on any objects to use this method. For example, to use this static method, we will have to use the name of this class rather than any objects that we create from this class, such as this. Okay. Now let me zoom this out, and now let me call the static method. To call this static method, I have to use this class name and have a dot after that, and then type in the name of this method. Okay. After that, inside brackets, we need to pass in a position. So now first I will pass manager, and I will have this inside a print statement. Okay. When I run this, I get true as the output because manager is in this list. Okay. I will type in cook here and I will run this, and I get false as the output because cook is not in this list, meaning cook is not a valid position in this company. Okay. So this is about static methods. For an instance method, we need to access an object and then call the instance method. With static method, we only need to access the class. We don't even need to create any objects from the class. Meaning, if I comment this out and if I run this, I will still get the output. This is because this method does not depend on any object. Whereas if I uncomment this and if I run this, I will get an error. And this is because this method depends on this object. Alright. So what is a static method? A static method is a method that belongs to a class rather than any object from that class. Whereas instance methods are the methods that belong to individual objects created from that class. Okay. Instance methods are best for operations on instances of that class. Okay. Whereas static methods are best for utility functions within a class that do not need access to class data. Alright. Now, you may have a doubt. What happens if we do not have this? If we do not type in the name of the decorator, then Python will think that this is an instance method and it will expect self here. Okay, and this is why to mention that this is a static method, we use this decorator. Okay, next comes the question, what is the need of having this inside this class itself? Can't we have this function outside the class? Of course we can. Then it would become a normal function. Okay? When a function is directly related to the class's purpose, then defining it within the class helps organize and group related behaviors. This makes the code more intuitive and easier to navigate. And also, when other developers look at this program, they will come to know that this belongs to this class's domain. Okay, so this is about static methods. All right.